He talks a good game. He talks a good game. On the accent, he talks a good game.
Hello, welcome to On the Ed Son. Hope you're all well. So, let me just quickly adjust this camera. It's not. There we go. Get rid of that volume. Sorry about that. Right. Yes. Hello. Welcome to On the Ed Son. It's a few technical difficulties here this afternoon. Here in the studio, the workshop, the igloo that it is. You might be able to see some cold condensation coming from my lips, but anyway, apologies for that. I do have the chat open. I am open to chat about all sorts of things, whatever you want to talk about in terms of sport, in terms of whatever it is. Let us know your thoughts, whether it's football. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about boxing a lot in this show, and some of the stuff that's been going on. January and into February has actually been a really great time for boxing. Lots going on. And I want to talk about one particular boxer because I've kind of in the past said, I don't enjoy watching him. And in the last couple of fights, he's shown that he can entertain as well. And I know there's a lot of narrative out there saying he's fantastic, he is the man, he is the best, one of the pound per pound greats, full weight world champion. Now I'm talking about Shakur Stevenson, of course, who got that fantastic win over Teofimo Lopez last weekend. But, I will say this. If you're a boxing fan, okay, so I'm assuming you're a boxing fan if you're watching this. If you're a boxing fan, if you'd gone back a couple of years ago, and this is where my mindset was in terms of Shakur Stevenson, fans in America, boxing fans in America, were virtually booing him out of stadiums or out of arenas. They didn't like to watch him box. He wasn't, whilst we can talk about boxing acumen and being a great boxer, technical boxer, and this is not for the casuals, this is for, real boxing fans. I'm with you 100%, right? However, at some point, we've also got to talk about the landscape of boxing. We've also got to talk about boxers getting their, or showing their worth, getting their shots at titles and that kind of thing. And we've been talking about this for such a long time in terms of boxers need to publicize themselves. They have to become their own PR agents. They have to not only show it in the ring, but also, improve their social media presence or whatever it is, but they have to make a name for themselves. I know it's not always easy to do, but it's no mistake. It's not by chance that a lot of successful sportsmen are also good personalities as well. Lots of great sportsmen who go on to subsequent media careers actually have decent personalities as well. In fact, sometimes mediocre sportsmen and women can have really good media or post-sporting career, second careers, as it were, because they've got really good personalities, and they're good at talking, they're good at communicating, and they're just naturals in front of the camera, let's say, or on a radio. So with Shakur Stevenson in particular, he had all the attributes of a great fighter. Of course, he was 2-3 weight world champion. At the time when I was talking about him and saying, look, I don't really care for him. I don't care to watch him. And there's lots of sportsmen over the years I can think of that are technically fantastic, but I just didn't care to watch them. This got nothing to do whether I'm a casual, whether I'm a hard and fast boxing fan. It was more about coming back to this where you've got to entertain. You've got to give people something to want to come back and want to be invested in you. So if you're not really showing, regardless of whether you're a defensive fighter, you're fighting on the back foot or anything like that, you've got to let your hands go and you've got to show those skills so that it embraces everybody and it gets everybody on your side. And what I thought was that Shakur Stevenson had all the attributes, but just wasn't bringing the show, as it were. Well, in the last couple of fights, he started to turn it around. And then this last fight against Teofimo Lopez, he definitely brought the show. And it wasn't as if he was fighting on the front foot or anything like that. It was still on the back foot. But it was just technically great. and he also was able to showcase his skills and show the difference between his levels and Teofimo Lopez, I should say. So that was actually a great thing for him. There's a great thing for him to demonstrate. So I know there's lots of boxing accounts and fan accounts out there saying, "Oh, fantastic!" And if you've ever disrespected or underrated Shakur Stevenson, then you don't know what you're talking about. I get it, because that is the right thing to say in terms of if you don't recognise good boxing skill or the levels of boxing skill. I never doubted that he had that boxing skill. What I doubted, or what I always question, is he bringing the show? Is he getting the fans on his side? And the evidence for myself to support that is that he was being booed out of arenas a couple of years ago in the United States. People just didn't want to watch him fight. It's difficult for him to get fights because of the entertainment value. The only reason he was starting to get fights afterwards was because he was the 3-weight world champion. He is Shakur Stevenson. He brings all the bouts, he brings the marbles. But in terms of the show, and we see this time and time again, you can have a fantastic world level boxer, world champion boxer, but they're not saleable. They're not relatable. Whereas you get somebody who's relatively mediocre in terms of levels, right? Relatively mediocre, unproven, and they can earn millions and millions and millions. And they can get the top fights and repeat to get top fights because, one, they bring it when they get in the ring. They try their best. Sometimes they're successful, but it's also their personality. Now, the most notable one of those right now in the ether as it is right now is Conor Benn. Conor Benn had those 2 fights against Chris Eubank Jr. last year. Lost the first, won the second. He's got lots of verbal, he's got the chat, he's got the mannerisms, he's putting himself about, he's getting in people's faces, and he's getting those opportunities, or his name is being recognised. But in terms of levels, we say, well, he's not really proven himself at that world elite level. But his marketability, his bankability, he's very bankable. So this is what I was saying about Shakur Stevenson, that he didn't have that. And I still don't think he has that. Now, I'm not saying that all boxers have to have that element to them, that entertainment, that bring the show, but they have to have something. So in the last couple of fights, he's come out of his shell a little bit, and he's shown everybody that, no, look, I am a great fighter. So it's a top draw to Shakur Stevenson, I've got to say. Fantastic display against Teofimo Lopez, who is a fantastic fighter himself. Let's make no mistake about it. These two are absolutely world elite. But on the night, it just goes to show that he was. I thought Teofimo Lopez was on a low ebb. I just didn't think he had a lot of energy there, and he was struggling with range, and he was struggling to match Shakur Stevenson, at any level, really. I think he was struggling, and it just got worse and worse for him as time went on. But still a great fighter, and he'll come again. He'll definitely come again. Now, what for Shakur Stevenson? Well, Conor Benn got into the ring afterwards, and they're trying to, set up a fight, and then, Conor Benn's giving it the big one and saying, I'm too big for you, and all this kind of stuff. And I just, in terms of weight, that is certainly not in terms of stature, but in terms of weight, he is. So you kind of think, well, is that a good fight? Is that a fight that you really want to see? Is that a fight that's going to get the juices flowing? The thing is, Conor Benn has got that kind of appeal, hasn't he, right now? Until somebody really puts him in his place and shows what the levels are, and he fails to impress in a couple of fights, then all of a sudden, that shine will go. But until that happens, he's very marketable. Very similar to Ryan Garcia, very marketable, but he's got to bring it as well. So Ryan Garcia had a terrible time last out. He's going in with Mario Barros soon. He's got to bring it. He's got to, Mario Barros is a relatively weak world champion. He had the last time out, he went out against a 47-year-old bloody Manny Pacquiao, and just barely beat him on points. So, you would imagine if the Ryan Garcia brings it, he should beat Mario Barrios. So then, okay, because Conor Benn has put himself about, against Ryan Garcia as well. And, okay, they're going to have to match each other on weights. You remember, Conor Benn went up to 160, and he was hovering around about 160, 164, 165, whatever it was on his last fight in terms of ring weight. Probably a little bit less than that, whatever it was. But then he's going to have to come all the way back down. Ultimately, he says he wants to go back down to 147. Well, that's still heavier than what these guys are traditionally are. So they're going to have to come up. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't happen straight away for Conor Benn. So he's going to have to get in with somebody pretty quick. He can't be waiting around. I know he's had 2 big paydays in terms of the Chris Eubank Jr. fights, but he can't be hanging around. He's got to get fights pretty soon. And it's almost like he's got to be careful that he doesn't outprice himself for a lot of these fights. And so he's bringing the marketability whilst the others are bringing the belts. And it's a kind of similar thing, and it's not the same thing, but it's a kind of similar thing in terms of marketability versus the boxing credentials, as it were, in terms of Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, in that kind of thing. Whereas, obviously I rate Conor Benn so much more as a boxer, as a fighter, of course. So I'm not comparing them in terms of skill levels at all. But I'm just talking about marketability, that you can get 2 people in the same ring, I should say, totally mismatched, but also you can have one brings the market, one brings a show, the other one brings the skills. Let's see what happens. And unfortunately, we've been having quite a few of those fights in the last couple of years. Boxing is having a big renaissance, but also it's falling flat on its face as well. Zuffa Boxing took off this in January with Paramount Plus or whatever it is in the United States. You can get it over here as well. I don't know. I thought some of the fights were okay. I just thought the presentation was really flat. I thought the atmosphere was really flat. He's trying to. I don't know exactly what they're trying to do, because Turki Al-Sheikh's involved in that as well, and you kind of think, well, what are you trying? Okay, I know they're trying to make a ground-up boxing program, but then you sign Jaya Pattaya, and then you're allowing him to also continue to fight for the bouts that you don't recognise, and then you can have your own bout as well. And again, it's just, you're not really sure what the end game here is. I'm not sure whether this Zuffa Boxing is ever going to work. And it is just another bout. It's just another organisation. And the problem is that, they got Jaya Pattaya. They might get a couple of others fighting there now. The couple of fight cards they've had already, a little bit, they're nothing to write about. No, the production value of the shows I thought was down, pretty poor. Dana White, I just don't warm to the guy at all. You ask Tom Aspinall right now, MMA heavyweight champion, right? You ask him, what he thinks of Dana White right now, because obviously, Tom Aspinall got eye poked twice against his fight against Cyril Gane, and Dana White is almost like he's blaming Tom Aspinall for not carrying on, or he's blaming him for being blind, or it's almost like he's very dismissive. That really is a piece of shit. That really is a piece of shit attitude from somebody like that. So, I just wonder how the fighters are going to feel after being under this Zuffa Boxing for a while. Then you see other fighters getting better opportunities. And what happens in the end? I know there's channels out there and commentators out there, observers in boxing. They love the idea of getting rid of the bouts. And I agree with that to a certain degree. But you've got to have universal acknowledgement of that. You've got to have universal saying, right, we're shedding the bouts, we're going to a global system, and that's it, right? Okay, that's great. But who's in charge of that? So you say, well, why should Zuffa Boxing take over? Why should they be the? Why should the Ring magazine be the one to do that? You know, it's almost like then what all you've done here is just bring in another bout. That's all you've done. You just brought in another bout. You got a crop of boxers who are just going to fight for you. So it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, you know, give it that sort of that kudos that I think you could give it. I mean, I say boxing is taken off again this year. We have a great end to 2025 in terms of fights. Loads more fights coming. I mean, this week, you know, we've had the Bronze Bomber. Deontay Wilder, you know, getting his nick in a twist over certain things as well. He's got fights coming up. You know, Tyson Fury getting back in the ring, and you know whether AJ will come back, Chisora come back into the ring against Wilder. We've got other fights. There is that talk, that fight card in San Francisco in July. Who's going to be headlining that? You know, so if you want these new entities, these new organisations, these new events to shine and to attract the public attention, you need to have big names, big boxers in there. Otherwise, they will fall flat. So, you know, I'm kind of with Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren in terms of, well, you know, boxing's been around for a long time. Whilst it's not perfect by a long stretch, this is how you generate interest, by the different bouts, by having world champions, multiple world champions and stuff like that. We've already seen time and time again when you've got a single world champion that it holds up the division. And the only time it comes together is when you have a unification or an undisputed title fight. So having multiple world champions in your own, you know, organisation, fine, you're the world champion of that organisation, you're the world champion of that organisation. But until they all fight each other and fight for the very top spot of undisputed, that's all that matters. So Zuffa Boxing, in this case, it's exactly the same. They just entered themselves into that race to become one of the fighters to become undisputed. Otherwise, it doesn't make any difference. What's the point in going over to Zuffa Boxing? Okay, if you think about it, you say, right, okay, it's for money at the lower level. But the point is, when you get to a certain level, you want to renegotiate. And Zuffa Boxing doesn't have, and I cannot see it ever getting, the financial clout to be able to afford the big purses, afford the big paydays. And it's not even structured like that either. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens there. Very interesting to see. I'm a huge boxing fan, but Shakur Stevenson showed that he can bring the show, showed that he can entertain, not only with boxing acumen, but also with he was better, you know, with his pre-fight stuff this time. He was better in his post-fight stuff as well. He's just been better all round for me, and you know, regardless of his achievements in the ring, these boxers got to bring a lot more. So the fights that we're going to get in the next few weeks, the next few months, you know, you're kind of licking your lips thinking this is going to be fantastic. But in terms of the whole landscape, you know, there's got to be something a little bit more than that. There's got to be some kind of uniformity, some organisation within it that gives credence to the notion of, you know, one world champion, let's say. But I don't think we're anywhere near that. We're nowhere near the notion of binning the bouts. I think we're nowhere near it, because what I've seen of Zuffa Boxing so far, it's flat. It's not very interesting. No big names to note of. I know they're just starting out, so you've got to give them time. I'm not sure whether, you know, boxers should be in that kind of organisation with the likes of Dana White. If his track record with the likes of Tom Aspinall and others, you know, is anything to go by. So there's lots of things to consider, right? Really. But anyway, listen, it's been a great January for boxing. It's going to be a great February as well. There's lots of fights coming up. Really can't wait, actually. Let's have a look here. Got the what's the fights coming in this weekend? There's some great ones, actually, wasn't there? Let's have a look here. There we go. Sorry, just go to the schedule. Get rid of that. I don't know why that's on there. There we go. Right, so why am I getting these? Get rid of this. Oh, dear. I got lots of pop-ups for some reason. There we go. Right, sorry about that. Right, so this coming, this Thursday, no, Friday. Yeah, Friday at Medina Curiel. That'd be a decent fight, actually. That's a WBO World Bantamweight Championship. That's Guadalajara, Mexico. Decent fight there. Yeah, let's have a look. Oh yeah, 7th. Yeah, that's right. This Saturday, 7th February. Nick Ball against Figueroa. So that'd be a great fight. Really, really good. That's in Liverpool, Echo Arena, Liverpool, and a couple of decent fights on the undercard there as well. And we've got was it the weekend after? Isn't it? Is it? No, sorry, the weekend. No, weekend, yes. The 15th of February. Watch out for this one. A Jagba, Nigerian heavyweight Jagba, is going to be fighting against Martin, the American Martin, a UFC Apex. That's Zuffa. That's the Zuffa. I hadn't realised that Jagba had gone over to Zuffa Boxing. Is that Zuffa Boxing? I assume it must be, yeah. It's interesting. So a couple of fights there. And then on the 21st of February, we got Ryan Garcia against Barrios as well. That's for the WBC World Welterweight Championship. So if we're talking about Conor Benn coming back down, he's going to have to come back down to 147. And if he can get a fight with either Barrios or Garcia afterwards, that's a fight. I mean, the thing is, getting the fight with Barrios, it was probably a bit too soon for Conor Benn to come back all the way down to 147. So we'll have to see, we'll have to see what happens there. Oh, yes. Sorry, the same night in Nottingham, we got Wood against Warrington. Great British fighter. Probably past a sell-by date in many ways, but great. Really looking forward to that. 22nd, you got Clarissa Shields, so back in action again. And 28th of February, Navarrete against Nunes for a couple of junior lightweight titles as well. Vargas against Quintana, Smalls Ramos, yeah. So, look, some great fights for February as well. Really looking forward to it. It's been a great January. Some big names making big moves. And it's great. It's great to see it. But I think, there's a cautionary tale here, I think, about, the different organisations, this bin in the bounce lark and all that kind of stuff. Well, all I've seen so far is that it's just another organisation, which I always thought was going to be coming in and maybe getting a couple of other fighters to come over and fight for them. But essentially, that's it. That's it. At some point, you'll be world champion at Zuffa Boxing, right? You'll have your belt, world champion Zuffa. That's it. Do you know what I mean? It's that great. That's it. Unless that Zuffa Boxing has credibility, and the only way it's going to get credibility in the boxing world if Ring Magazine, which is obviously associated with it via Turkey Al Sheikh, gives it credence. But I think boxing fans are going to be looking at this and saying, well, unless Zuffa Boxing are also going to work with the other organisations to allow their boxers to fight for other bouts as well, and those boxers under Zuffa Boxing, they've got to be recognised by those other other organisations as well. So it could be that you've just got, like I said, as you can tell, probably not that impressed with it. But some great fights coming up, great fights. I suppose if you look at that, if all you're interested in just watching great fights or decent fights, yeah, it's almost like you're spoilt for choice a little bit. There's boxing, BBC coming out on a semi-regular basis, all over DAZN, coming out on YouTube in July, Paramount Plus, the Zuffa Boxing. So you can always get the highlights from DAZN on YouTube very soon afterwards. So it's there. It's there for you to enjoy, there for you to see it. Anyway, listen, I'm going to leave it there. I know it's a bit early for anybody to join in on the chat, but if you like what I do here, keep on watching. I'm going to bring more sports stories, more live shows as well in the future. But let us know what you think in the comments below afterwards. Which fights you're really looking forward to? What do you think of Shakur Stevenson, Conor Benn, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, obviously AJ, if he'll ever come back, of course, after the tragic accident that he was involved in, and all the other fighters there. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. So if you like what I do here, keep on watching, and I'll catch you again on another live show or video very soon. Bye now.